Hi, my name is Saurabh, and in this video, we are going to talk about how to define a context of the organization for implementing ISO 9001 2015. Now, this is a basic quality management standard where it is a standard to align all the processes to a standard which is ISO 9001, and the requirements are bare minimum to carry out activities. So let us go further. Let me share my screen and we'll go to, yep. So this is a presentation which I have made. So as I said, today's topic is how to define the context of the organization. So let us go to the second slide where in the context of the organization, we have to define internal context, external context, needs and expectations of interested parties, the overall scope of the organization, and the QMS processes and different definitions of QMS processes, which in the subsequent slides will be able to understand more. So let us go to what is the context, because this word has been popped up for the first time in the standard. Before this standard, which was 9001 2008, nothing was mentioned about the organization and its context. This is a very new point or very new clause which is added to the standard. Why? Because now it is looking towards business. This standard is not about keeping documents. This standard is looking at a business with a different perspective, and whatever you are implementing, you should gain or you should make profit out of the implementation. This is the only intention of this new standard. That is the reason this clause has been added, which is context of the organization. So let us understand what is the meaning of the word context. Now, the dictionary meaning of the word context itself says that the situation in which something happens or that caused something to happen. And the second line goes like this: to put our company in context, we are now the third largest in the country. So even while defining the context of your own organization, you have to consider many things. And one of the thing is this: are you the largest? Are you the third largest? What is the share of your company? What is the whole market, etc., etc., etc. So this is basically defining the context. So I'm sure that you are able to now at least understand what exactly is the meaning of the word context. Let us go further. While defining the internal context, internal means within the organization, we have to define the values, culture, knowledge, and performance of the organization. Now, while defining the context, some points may go against the organization because they are not there, which are generally called as negative points. But there are many such positive points on which the company is still existing and it is growing, right? So, while defining the values, let us understand what are the good values which an organization has. So you need to consider, you need to really scratch your head while implementing or while arriving at a point that what type of values does your organization have. Now, let's say, for example, you have an organization which is existing for many years, and not even one time you have paid bribe to anyone to secure anything or let go of anything. This is the value. This is a very nice and a positive value to your organization. Write it down as one of the positive value. That means your organization does not accept any bribe, does not give any bribe. So you are very much open to everything, right? There is nothing hidden about your organization, which can be one of the value. Uh, let's say on the negative side, you know, uh, you don't value your suggestions given by your own employees. It may happen. So this is a negative value. So write it down. Even if it is negative, write it down on a piece of paper that these are the negative values which my organization has. Because this paper and this scribbling work will ultimately take you to the exact defined context of your organization, because this is a very crucial area and a very critical area. Because if this is not defined well, the whole standard would go haywire and the implementation would go in a very different state. We don't want that. So that is the reason you define the negatives also, and of course the positives as well. The third point shows that what is the knowledge level in the organization. Now, let me guess that if at all you have an organization and let's say you have two, three people in one department, right? So each and every department has different set of people who are working in your organization. Production may have many people, but apart from production area, there could be two or three people who are working. But in their work also, person number one does not know anything about what person number two is doing in the same department. Person number two does not know what person number one and three is doing, remaining in the same department for many years. This is called the internal knowledge. Because let's say, God forbid, and person one is not coming for 2 3 days in your organization, who will do his work? It needs to be shared among person two and person three. So if he is well aware of what person one is doing, then only they will be able to do the work. If they are not, then it is no point. So this is one negative point, or you can say it is a positive point. Because in small organization, this could be a very, very positive point where a person for some time is working in purchase department. When somebody is not there in production, he may go to a production department also. If somebody is not there in stores department, he may go to stores department also. So the rules or the roles change in a smaller organization. But in a bigger organization, it may happen that it is so bifurcated and fragmented that even if remaining in one department for many years, one person may not know what the other person is doing. So that is a negative thing. As well as many people, many employees does not know what the company is manufacturing, what the company is giving service for, who are their customers. The people or the employees who are into stores are concentrating only on finished goods and their storage, but they don't know what is the customer requirement for the storage. It may happen. So if this is the situation, then this is a negative thing in your organization. If that person knows what is the requirement of storage of that material of the customer, then your organization has a positive point regarding knowledge. So, I mean, you have to weigh what is the point and how far it has been explored or unexplored, as well as the performance of the organization is more important. Now, performance in the sense, it is not about only performance money wise or time wise. It is the overall performance of the organization and the internal performance of the organization. Let's say in some departments, uh, for example, we take an example of, say, a purchase department. In a purchase department, there are three people who are working, out of which the first person is working for last 10 years, the second person is working for last 5 years, and the third person is working for last 2 years. Now, it may happen that all three are working relentlessly. The person who has finished 10 years is still working with the same pace. The person who has, given his 5 years or even 2 years are giving their best shot every time. So if this is the situation, you have a positive point towards performance of the organization. They are not letting, any of the three are not letting the purchase department down. If this is the situation, then you have a positive point. If not, the flip side of it, let's say the same 10 years old employee is not at all working, in the sense that uh, because of his ill performance or non performance or non working, just delegating his work, the other two persons are heavily underwork and they are not able to complete their work. And that is the reason the general performance of the purchase department is a little low. If this is a situation, then you have a negative point. So this is about only one department, but it could be possibly that the same thing is there in other departments also, either positive or negative, that you have to define. So whenever you're defining the internal context on these 4 points, understand your employees well, understand the way they work, understand the culture which they have. Now, again, let me come to the culture. Now, if it is, this is an assembly line which you are, as a manufacturer, you are into an assembly line. So you have a culture where even if the part is not as per the requirement, the person who has manufactured that part boldly comes and tells his manager that sorry, he has made a mistake, but he would like to rectify it. So this is a very open culture where a senior is more approachable. At the same time, on the flip side, it may happen that the culture is so bad that the employees are hiding their ills or their wrongdoings from their manager, and the manager is not able to gauge what exactly is the performance. It may happen. So this is about internal context. So while implementing or while defining the internal context, management has to think over what exactly these 4 points and the whole organization mean to them. When you arrive at what is the internal context, kindly write it down on a piece of paper, because again, as I said last time also, these points or these scribblings will ultimately take you to the exact context or the current context of your organization. So that's about internal context. Let us go a little further. Now here it is an external context. The external context is anything other than the organization. So the first one was internal, which was only limited to the internal resources or the internal people. External or a context is anything which is, you know, outside your organization, right? So in that, the first point comes is legal. Now, when we talk about legal, you need to first ask the question whether I am legally compliant to do this product or manufacture this product or a service. If yes, then it is a good point or a positive point for you. Now, at times I have seen that people start manufacturing small things, small products they are manufacturing, but they don't have a manufacturing license. They don't have a sanction from a local authority to manufacture it. They don't have legal papers for the workshop or for the manufacturing area, which they have either rented or purchased. It may happen. So in that case, if this is the situation, then while defining the external context, the legal area is weak. So there are some negative points, in your organization. In India, or probably in Asian countries, I've seen that many organizations have a warehouse, many organizations have a manufacturing place where they are manufacturing something which is dangerous, and yet they haven't had a sanction from fire department, as their premises is such that it cannot be fire compliant. Even after knowing this situation or knowing this thing, the management is taking decision to go ahead and do day-to-day activities of production. This is, at this moment of time you may not feel it, but in the near future it could possibly be a big accident where you may lose everything which you have. So if that is the situation, then the legal point goes against the context of the organization, where you need to define it in that manner. And anyways, you are not going to show any negative points or positive points to the outside world. Let me be very clear. The external context or the internal context, whatever you are, defining it as negative points. Okay, positive points, we don't have any issues to produce them and for the outside world. But when it comes to negative points, many organizations tend to hide those things. Let me tell you that while implementing ISO 9001 2015, you don't have to present it to any outside person as a context if at all you have any negative thing or negative points jotted down. So feel free to write down everything which are negative points, and extensively everything which are positive points. So we'll go to the next point, which is technological. Now, there are certain technological advancement which are going on in the industry. First, it was only industrialization. Now it is automation. After automation, which is now it is AI related automation. So if your setup is lesser than what the current technology is, then that point goes negative on your context. But if you are having the top class current machinery, current trained people, sorry, we are talking about only machinery or the latest technology. So if the latest technology machines are there at your place, then it is a good point, it is a positive point. So write it down under positive point. Now, how competitive you are, we are defining external context. So competition or competitive is my product is more competitive than the product of my uh, rival. So rival product and my product, I have 10 features, he has only 6 features. If this is the situation, then it is a positive point. If the situation is completely different, where you have 6 features in the product and your competitor has 10 features in the product, so you have 4 less features in your product. So in that case, you have a negative point. So while defining external context, you have to define competitive point as negative or feature point as negative under competitiveness, right? Then market, uh, you know, depending upon the product and service, we are marketing this product or service to a specific set of customers, right? And we are going to their places, or presenting them with the samples, or giving them free service so that they uh, have a just have a feeling of what the service is all about. If this is the case, then the market is applicable to you. Now, while defining the market or the external context as market, you have to also think of what is the total market for that product, for my product. To what extent I am catering to the requirement? Am I fulfilling the requirement? Am I, or rather, what is the percentage of the whole requirement which is there existing? Let's say, for example, you are not a giant in your market. You may be only 2 or 3% of the whole requirement of the market. If this is the situation, then it is a little bit negative. I cannot say negative because this could be your strategic decision to remain only 5%. You don't have to expand, or you have thought that I will not expand beyond 5%. That's absolutely okay. So even if you are negative in the market, it is a management decision that we will not go above 5% of the market, or will not go uh, to capture more than 5% of the market. If that is the thing, then this is a positive point, that we are 5%, we are happy with it. So that's about market. Now let's come to the cultural point. Now, in some, this culture is dependent on where we are situated, how is the whole, the surroundings of where we are functioning. Let's say I am a manufacturer and I have a unit in an industrial zone, notified industrial zone. So the culture there is, there are many such organizations which are there, and employees come to your place, they work, and then they go. While the industrial complexes have a specific culture, they don't let anyone inside the door through the main gate. Then uh, you have a three-phase electricity which is at your doorstep. Then if you have anything which is related to the land, you don't have to think about it, because your landlord or the industrial society will take care of it. So there is a kind of culture which is set, if you are into the right place. On the flip side, let's say I have we you have a manufacturing unit in the basement of your own house. Now, this is a very vague example, but then let us understand that you are into a residential area where you are just staying upstairs, and down you have a basement, and you started your manufacturing business there. So the culture is completely different. Here, people are staying, people don't want noise, people don't want usage of water, people don't want um, emissions, people don't want you know wastewater to drain off without any treatment. If this is the situation, this culture is very bad. So culturally, we are in a bad state. So I have given one or two examples regarding what is the culture. Now you have to define where you stand in terms of culture. Do you have negative points? Do you have positive points? We go a little further, social and economic environments. Now, social and as clearly mentioned, what are the social and economic environments in which your industry is performing? Let's say, for example, in India, manufacturing industry is almost dying. So this is a social and economic environment in India. In European countries, uh, every month one farmer is giving his fields off and becoming, a daily wage earner rather than working for his farm. If this is a situation, then this is a socio and economic environment. In America, that is in the US, there are about 20% of the people who are doing farming, and this percentage is reducing day by day. So it is not conducive to farming. So if this is the situation, then the socio and economic environments are very bad. But at the flip side, now very recently, India has announced a big hefty loan to uplift the uh, manufacturing sector in India. Then uh, there is, there are two, three more policies which are drafted and they are now coming into force in India. If this is a situation, then the socio-economic environment, which was bad previously, is now slowly turning into a positive side. So if your country is having such kind of change, then the point would be written as a positive point. Otherwise, you have to write it as a negative point. I mean, the actions which you will take, or it may happen that you may not be able to take any action, that is a different thing. But while defining the external context, you have to define it this way. And then the last point says whether you are internationally existing, nationally existing, regionally existing, or locally existing organization uh, in terms of external context. So you need to understand, what am I manufacturing, where I am supplying. Let's say I am supplying a very small part, manufacturing very small part uh, in, say, industrial zone number one, and in the same industrial zone, just right across my walking distance, my client is there, who is taking all my material, and I am just manufacturing it for him. So if this is a situation, my organization is local. Secondly, if, let's say, my industrial gala, or the industrial tools and tackles which I am manufacturing is only for a specific periphery of the state, if this is a situation, then it is only regional. So you need to consider all the other points for regional only. Thirdly, if I am not exporting my product, if I am selling my product only into my own country, then this situation is a national situation. And then the fourth situation is international situation, when you are exporting your product to other countries. So all these legal, technological, competitive, market, cultural, and socio-economic environments, all these points will differ on on the status of the last point which we mentioned, whether you are local or regional or national or internationally or existing organization, right? So in this way, you have to define the context, that is negative points or positive points, right? Write it down, jot it down as I am delivering this lecture, because only then you will be able to understand. And if you don't, uh, you know if you are not able to come to a situation or come to a decision, uh, Please go through the whole video, and in the back of the mind, you just think over all these points. You will get an answer, and when you get an answer, write it down. Right? We'll just go a little further now. Oh, why the heading is not there? Okay, anyways, the second point which we discussed is needs and expectations of interested parties. Now, we just defined our context, which is internal context and external context. With that, while defining the context of the organization, you also have to define what are the needs and expectations of the interested parties. Now, who are the interested parties? We have already defined them in the uh, while defining the first point, which is internal context and external context. I mean, we have considered, so while internal context we considered that uh, entities like employees, then your bosses, then your managers are all internal interested parties, right? And externally, suppliers, customers, legal authorities are external. We'll just go to the next slide and we'll be able to understand more. Yes. When you say needs and expectations of the interested parties, there are two different interested parties which are there, which is internal interested party and external interested party. So in internal interested party, there are employees, colleagues, director, owners, etc. Anything from internal. And in external interested parties, there are suppliers, customers, local or regional authorities, or statutory authorities, regulatory authorities, and then the associations to which you are affiliated, right? So we need to define their needs and their expectations. Now, what is the difference between a need and an expectation? Let me tell you. Need is something which is agreed upon, which is, we are in agreement with someone for that specific thing. Those all things are called as needs. And expectations means there is no agreement as such, or per se, there is no agreement, but then it is understood that if I am buying A, the B will come with that. Let's say, for example, when I'm asking for a cup of tea, my need is I want a cup of tea. But my expectation is the cup should be clean. If I am having a cup and a saucer, the saucer should be clean. I should get the tea with a specific blend or flavor. I should get a tea with added sugar, already added sugar, or a sugar pack with that, right? So these are my expectations, which I haven't defined it, or the agreement while purchasing a cup of tea. I haven't told crisp and clear that I want one spoon of sugar. The tea should be hot at 122 degrees Celsius. No, I haven't said that. So in that fashion, there are some things which are needs and there are some things which are expectations. So let's say, for example, employees. What are the need of the employees? Simple. They should get their salary on time, and which is agreed because in their appointment letter, generally it is written that every month on the 10th of every month, the salary will be credited in your account, right? So that is their needs. Now, what is their expectation? Expectation could be anything in under the sun which is not written in their agreement. Let's say, for example, an employee has any of his friend who he thinks that he is competent and he needs to join your organization. So he comes to the senior and he hand over his friend's resume to his senior. So he is expecting that my friend should be called at least for an interview. So it is expectation. At the same time, uh, when you say colleague or director, the director's need is his employees should obey whatever is given to them. They should complete their work in time. The production and the profitability of the organization should be at a specific level. So these are needs. Okay, these are not defined in an agreement, but yes, to some extent, the responsibility and authority for every person is been defined, and in that KRAs are defined, key result areas. So when key result areas are defined, this becomes director's needs. And what is the expectation of the director is, uh, employees should come up with new situations, new ideas to increase productivity. It could be his expectation. Nobody has imposed on employees that you know the thing should be increased. No, but he it could be his expectation. At the same time, with external interested parties. Now let us understand what is the need of the supplier. Supplier's need is they should get money on time, and the product specification should be exactly same and crisp and clear. This could be his need, which is again mentioned in the order copy which is given to the supplier. His expectation is he should get regular orders for the same product, which may or may not be possible depending upon the situation of an organization. Customers, the need of the customer is to get the product with exactly same specification which are mentioned in the purchase order which is given to us or given to the client, sorry, the supplier, right? The same thing as supplier, the customers are also expecting something. The expectation of the customer is could be anything which is not mentioned in the agreement. So he may require daily and weekly and monthly reports of the situation and the performance of your company. It could be his expectation. So in that fashion, you have to define the needs and expectations of any interested party. In that, whatever is existing and whatever is going on in the organization, you need to define that. You don't exaggerate or think more on what are the needs and expectation. Generally, these things are followed, but only thing is they are not jotted down. So while implementing ISO 9001, the requirement for defining needs and expectations of interested parties is only to jot down the same on the paper, nothing else. So don't, apply much of the, knowledge and understanding. Nothing. It should be clear. What are the needs? What are the expectations? Whatever is defined in the agreement are needs. Whatever are not defined in the agreement are all expectations, right? So after that, the third point which you have to define as the context of the organization is the scope of the organization. So, well, while you are defining the scope, you need to first define the context and interested parties, and based on those outcome, you have to define the scope, where the context could be. I'm sorry. Let me go to the back. Okay. The context could be, while defining the context, it could be such that there are many positive points but there are no negative points, or feebly small. So this could be one point while defining the scope. Or on the flip side, it could be such that most of the points are negative, only 2 3 points are there which are positive when you defined your context. It may happen. While defining, after defining the interested parties and the requirements, you need to enter them into the scope, that what is the scope of my company. And last but not the least, the product and the services which are offered. So crystal clear, uh, a box manufacturing company. So let's say I am having you know, corrugated box manufacturing organization, and I am catering to two, three clients, and one of them is Pizza Hut, for example. So my product is corrugated box. What is the box? Three ply, five ply, whatever. What is the fruit? Whatever is mentioned by Pizza Hut or any of the clients. So I need to mention everything in detail with requirements of customers in terms of products and services in the scope. So this is the third point which you have to define while arriving at the context of the organization. What is the next point? Let us understand quality management processes, sorry, systems and processes, where the first point is input and output of each process. Now there are small process. Let us understand there are process like uh, sales, purchase, production, quality, stores, human resource and training. Uh, Example. So all these six different types of processes are there, and for each process there is something which is input, and after the process is complete, there is output, right? We need to also understand that there is interrelation between each processes. So an output of any one process could possibly be input of the other process, right? Okay, let me be very clear. Now, output of a purchase department is raw material at the site, right? Because that is the reason why the purchase department is there, right? So the output of a purchase department is the raw material required to manufacturing goods, right? This raw material becomes input for a production department, and then production department's outcome is the final product of the company, right? Then the quality controls input is the final product of the company, though they are doing intermediate testing also. But let us consider that the final product of the company is an input to quality control department, and after the quality control departments check, what you get is assured product, quality assured product, which is an output. A general product, normal product, which is just manufactured without any quality check. And after QC department's process, the output of the process is assured product, right? So in that fashion, you need to define input, process, output, input, process, output for each and every process. It may happen that there are more than one inputs for any process, and it may also happen that there are more than one output for each process. So you need to clearly define. Again, there is no brain game in it. It is just crystal clear, which is already there. If an organization is existing for even a month, so you just need to define that on a paper or on a soft copy, right? The second point is sequence and interaction. As I mentioned, the output of any one process is an input to another process. If there is any linkage like this, then there is a sequence and interaction between those two processes. So you need to understand, and you just have to draw flow chart. Now again, you don't have to be very tech savvy, or you need to use very fancy application to prepare this interaction. Nothing, just simple fresh white paper on which you just scribble it, and you mention your name and your signature as a management. Simple, that becomes your sequence and interaction of the process, right? The third point is criteria for measurement. Now you have already defined the processes, right? You need to define the criteria for measurement. Let's say, for example, how you will define, or how you will define the criteria for purchase process, how you will define the criteria for production process, how you will define the criteria for services process. Uh, Now, criteria defining is, let's say, for example, in my organization, I will buy goods only from the approved supplier. Now, this is the criteria. I will buy goods only from those suppliers whom I have approved is the criteria. Then, you know, we will go to a next point, which is method of monitoring. How will I monitor each process? Now, again, we take an example of purchase process. Now, how can we monitor uh, or method, which method we should apply for monitoring of the purchase process is the method of monitoring would be, um, you know, method of monitoring. I'm not able to recollect what exactly, but the monitoring method would be, let's say, all my suppliers are into A category when they are evaluated. So that could be method of monitoring. So evaluation of supplier is a method for monitoring. That's it. Then resource determination. So for each process, what type of resources are needed? Again, there are two, three different types of resources: material resource, infrastructure resource, and a human resource. So material and infrastructure can be combined, and then there is human resource. So you need to define what is the current requirement, not what is there existing for the resource determination, right? As well as another point is you need to define the responsibilities and authorities of all the employees. You can start with the managers who are the senior most people, and then you can try defining the authorities and responsibilities for almost all the employees. Slowly you should define it. Then you also have to determine the risk and opportunities. Again, now this point has come in clause number 4, but it is actually related to clause number 6 of quality management system, which is ISO 9000 by 2015. Now, in the next videos, I'll be defining how to determine the risk and opportunities. Stay tuned for that kind of video as well, right? At the same time, evaluation of processes and changes to be implemented. Now, how will you evaluate any process? We have already defined method of monitoring. You just need to evaluate the process. The same thing needs to be extrapolated as evaluation. Let's say all my suppliers are 100% is an evaluation. I have a customer satisfaction ratio of 95 plus is an evaluation of the sales and marketing process. None of my material is lying on the shelf and which is expired is the evaluation of my process. So in that fashion, you need to define the QMS system and processes. Again, the paper or the documents which you will be making for these simple documents, they don't need any header, footer, and glorification can be done afterwards. But first, try to define everything in this fashion. So here we come to an end of defining the context of the organization, which is clause number 4 of ISO 9001 2015. Now, how to determine a scope? A scope is determined simply by writing down a document, as I mentioned in the previous slides also, that you have to just write it down one after another, right? So in that fashion also, a point A says that a simple write down or type as a document. Second point, B point, which is a SWOT analysis can be defined, but which is defined only for the context, which is the first part of the whole context of the organization, right? So SWOT analysis, which is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. In that fashion, also you can define internal and external, uh, you know, context. So that is defining the scope. So if you like this video, do like this video. If you found this very much informative, I would urge that you like this video. You do subscribe to my channel because I am going to upload many videos in that fashion. And you just have to go through each and every video and you'll be understanding the way ISO 9001 can be implemented. It is very easy, but only thing is you don't have to get bogged down with the jargons. And let me be very frank with you that this standard, ISO 9001 2015 standard, is being made so simplified, and the jargons which were there in the previous standards, which are completely reduced to a bare minimum. So if you are anyone who is trying to implement at your place any of your ISO standards, do subscribe my channel, press the bell icon so that whenever I upload any video, you will get an indication. Thank you very much, and I am stopping the share. And thank you very much for your time, sir.